fuck's wrong with you? I says, you want to know what's wrong with me? If I don't get out of that fucking borough of Queens, I'm going to take the chief hostage. And he says, you want to come work for me in the A3 in my RIP unit? I was like, you get me transferred to Brooklyn North. I'll be over at your house every day to walk your dog and wash your car. He's like, you don't need to do that. You just make some gun collars and robbery collars. I'm like, if I can do that in Long Island City, you don't think I can do it on Knickerbocker Avenue? He's like, I know you can. 3 weeks later, the transfer comes down. When no one will touch me with a 10-foot pole. Joe Esposito's the guy with the 11-foot pole.
Right. Wow, that's great.
And he brings me to the A3. But the day that the order comes down for the transfer,
here we go again.
I'm in federal court watching my partner, Patty Regan, be convicted of perjury.
Here we are, the palatial estates, Ossining, New York. Me and my partner in law enforcement, Bill Cannon, with our guest, legendary police officer and author, Michael O'Keefe. What's up, buddy?
I like the sound of the legendary author.
You know, I was just commenting off the air that, you know, usually these podcasts are much funnier, but this one's pretty damn serious, right? I guess the nature of this needs to be serious. He doesn't want us.
Listen, I'm not
right?
I'm not going for goofy laughs or trying to be like, haha, funny. Wherever the story takes us. And it's a fascinating story. I think it's remarkable.
It's a great story. What a piece of New York history, too. Right?
It's a piece of New York history. It just goes to show you that we're living, it just keeps revolving, and it's the same shit all the time. Politicians lying to us, media lying to us, this knocking of law enforcement all the time, depending on who's in the position of power at the time. And the fact that you can get caught up in something like this as a young man, just trying to go out there and do the right thing, take guns off the streets, save lives, and that you can be put in this position so other people can get to wherever they want to, this fictional place they want to get to in political power. It's disgusting, and it doesn't seem to be changing at all. And I'm happy that you made it out of there, in that particular situation, even though your buddy Regan, he came out, he did a year, but now he sounds like he's thriving, so God bless him.
But Patty's doing great. He's a grandfather now.
Well,
but you went on how many years did you wind up doing on the police department?
I did a total of, it was 24 and a half.
Oh, so you stayed past the 20?
I never would have left if I didn't get hurt.
Okay.
I just...
How'd you get hurt?
It was a compendium of injuries. Pretty much...
That's a good word, man. That's a writer's word.
Well, there you go, St. Francis Prep strikes again. So...
compendium. That would never come out of my mouth, I don't think.
Everything goes arthritic given enough time.
And you lifted a lot of weights in your youth, right?
I played a lot of football. I lifted a lot of weights. I played rugby in college. Shit breaks, and you think when you're young it heals so fast you think you're a vampire, and it's always going to do that. And then you get into your 40s and the joke is on you because it's not healing anymore. It's starting to require surgeries now. But basically my problem is I treated my body like a torpedo, my whole career. I mean, I didn't stop.
You were an action star. A real action star.
A stuntman whose body didn't heal.
None of them heal. You ever see old stuntmen?
Oh, God.
Ooh, they don't walk so good.
I wonder what Rob Gronkowski, who just retired from the Patriots, he's going to be a cripple.
He's going to be on a walker within 5 years.
Oh, my God. You see the hits he took and the knee injury.
Well, what's nice for Rob Gronkowski is modern medicine. He's going to be swapping joints out left and right.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So, I mean, if you look at... you talk about old weightlifters that are staying young forever. Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Right.
He's got 2 fake hips, 2 fake shoulders, 2 fake knees. He's got a metal implant in his ankle.
And a quadruple bypass.
And a quadruple bypass.
I did security for him one time, and then we went into Armani, and he wanted to buy a suit jacket. And he took a size 56 jacket. For a guy that weighs like 235, that's gigantic, right?
You know how expensive it is to get a suit when you're wide like that?
Dimensions.
I haven't been able to buy a suit off the rack in years. I have to do separates. I got to get a jacket, and I got to buy my pants separate.
There was a guy behind the counter at Armani, and he was a bodybuilder. He's all pumped up. And Arnold looks at him. He says, "You're pumped up." The guy was so excited, man. Arnold Schwarzenegger said to me, "I'm pumped up."
So you mentioned, Michael, you were at a barbecue with your future wife in Long Island. Everything's going great. And she had a cell phone. a job cell phone. And she gets a call from somebody on a rooftop.
Yep, her partner, Pete West. And he says, why am I on a rooftop in Washington Heights, and why are they burning your boyfriend in effigy? So,
what are they burning? That's
it's
supposed
basically
to be
a dummy with a sign around its neck that says O'Keefe. It's in a police uniform.
They got your
French
name.
blue shirt.
So they had
They had already painted my
Who
name.
was the CO of the 3-4 back then?
At the time, it was Nick Estevillo.
Oh, Estevillo.
Did the police shooting originally make the newspaper? The first day after the shooting?
The next day, July 4th, in the Daily News, there was a inch and a half column, just as an afterthought. That's all there was.
So there must have been one. I'm trying to think of the initial person or group of people that were very, very upset about this particular shooting, and they decided to start being vocal about it. Did you ever get to the bottom of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually it's well known. The drug cartel up there, the guys that ran all the drugs, the big bosses, they call themselves the Dominican Bodega Association, but they were a drug cartel.
Is that still a thing up there?
I don't know if it's still a thing.
Because they also had
bosses
they
still
had
run
that,
the drugs.
that livery cab, that guy that was always a political guy. Was his name Mateo or something? Yeah, he was involved in the politics up there. Yeah,
they were mules.
The livery cars were mules.
Yeah.
So the bodega owners...
They weren't really bodega owners. They owned the dirty bodegas.
Okay.
There were plenty of clean ones.
Right, but where the drug dealers hung out in front of.
Yeah, well, they were all
bodega for you people from the suburbs is delicatessen.
Delicatessen, right. But ultimately what it was is they saw an opportunity now. First of all, they had the mayor who was going to take their side, whatever they wanted to do. They saw an opportunity, well, because they stole the election from him.
But because they're an association now.
They were
They're passing themselves off as a
legitimate political organization. Yeah.
And he hated the police too.
Yeah. But largely, he needed their support if he was going to get reelected.
Who was Kiko to the community?
He was a drug dealer. That's all he was.
Was he one of those, what was it, Hobillero? What was that word you used?
Jíbaro?
Yeah. Was he one of those?
Yeah.
Was he here, living here, or did he come here for a purpose?
He came here from San Pedro de Macorís, where all the drug dealers and hitmen come from, and the shortstops.
Well, Mike McAlery wrote a big story about that, right?
He didn't play any baseball, though.
Yeah.
And specifically came here to be part of the drug organization.
Right.
And he was actually a mid-level manager. He was the guy that would coordinate all the spots on the block and all of the spots in the building. Mm-hmm. And he was the protection. He was basically managing it from the street.
How many different locations on one block can you get drugs from?
At that time, probably more than 100.
On one block?
Yeah.
But they all fall under the same organization.
Well, the interesting thing about it is one of the mistakes that the cartel made, they ceded control over what was going on in the streets because they just sold you the product in bulk. They didn't work out franchises for who had what spot here. It was basically open country.
They let them fight it out
amongst yourselves.
So they started
and that's the reason why you had those murders.
Yeah.
So it was,
I don't want to totally get out of order, but I remember part of this whole thing that exacerbated and caused the riots was that someone said that you planted a gun on Kiko Garcia. And just a funny footnote to that was Dinkins and two of his flunkies went to Kiko Garcia's house. And his mother said, that's impossible that was his gun. Here are his guns. She showed him like 13 guns he had in the apartment.
Really?
And I mean, how embarrassing is that? The mayor goes there. Yeah, that's believable. That wasn't his gun. He has 13 guns. Here's his guns.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
How pathetic.
Yeah, you can't even make that up. That's...
Yeah. And I mean, Dinkins was like,
that's
oh,
great.
shit.
It's good for a movie.
Well, ostensibly, they got everybody in the neighborhood raised up to go out and riot.
Right.
And then they went a step further and they started importing people for $50 a day to come up and riot.
Sounds like Al Sharpton.
Importing them from where?
Yeah.
From downtown to just
all
pay
over the
them?
city.
And whoever would come up, they'd give them
Queens, Brooklyn, the Bronx. Hey, come on over. They're going to give us...
Attention, rioters.
Yeah. They're going to give us $50 in Presidente beer.
Yeah. Let's
go have fun. And a lot of guys came over and they basically were shopping. They were taking down windows to go shopping on Broadway. But in any event, that's the riots now are kicking off.
So this is a day after the shooting. You're at this picnic. So a day later, a day and a half later, you realize.
Well, the media, and they were really the biggest problem here. The media gets wind.
Even back then, huh?
Yeah, the media gets wind that shit's going on up there. And now they come up into a neighborhood they had never been before because they were afraid to come there. And they come up in droves. And everybody who wants to come in front of a microphone and bash the police, specifically me and my anti-crime team, they put a microphone in front of them and a TV camera. Now, the allegations were outlandish. They should never have been even entertained. They shouldn't have ever made it onto the TV.
Yet they're still making the news.
What had occurred...
Do you remember any specific news reporters that were the worst with this?
I'm actually friends with one that did a horrible job up there, but I forgive her. So I'm not...
Penny Crone?
No, Penny was good. Penny was always pro-cop.
Yeah, she was.
No, I'm not going to mention this reporter's name because I like her.
All right.
But pretty much all of them fell into this. And they got taken advantage of and they got used. The next day, now that the media is reporting on all this, and you know what, I have to take a step back because the reason why these outlandish allegations are being reported almost as fact immediately, as soon as they're made, without any evidence or any secondary sources, is because a couple of months previous to that, there was going to be a big scandal in the mayor's office. And he formed the Marlin Commission to take attention away from it. So what happens in the Marlin Commission? Guys that had already been caught and convicted of corruption in the police department.
Michael Dowd and...
Go and tell their story to the national media now. And they're basically lionized as whistleblowers. Michael Dowd was so fucking bad that everything became possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Now the idea that me and my team are land pirates that are murdering people and robbing drug money and selling drugs and money
Became believable.
It's believable.
Yeah. You know, supposedly I'm a millionaire, which, you know, made me, Janet, my wife, is like, where's all this fucking money? You live in a basement apartment. I'm like, I know, right? I can't even afford an oil change on my car. But in any event, that's the reason. Now the media runs with it, and every allegation leads into another, and it just starts snowballing. I'm public enemy number one, basically. For
let me ask you something too, because obviously at this point, and I don't know the exact timing, the police department knows the truth, and they at some point they went above and beyond to show that this guy Kiko Garcia was a super dirtbag. I remember Manhattan North Narcotics had some video of him with like kilos and guns like this because they had a case on him. But how now were they sort of? Did anyone tell them not to put that stuff out?
Yeah, they got shut down.
So they got shut down. So it
got out there and then it was gone.
So maybe you're talking, it went pretty high up then. We're saying don't
came right out of the mayor's office.
Oh,
What
okay.
happened?
All
What
right.
happened? Ray Kelly was the first step at the time.
Right.
Okay. Lee Brown at this point, out-of-town Brown,
Yes,
is
I remember,
already an absentee police commissioner. He hasn't been in the city in 5 months. And he wasn't coming back when he found out 2 summers in a row, I got riots. Fuck that. I'm staying in Texas. So Lee Brown is gone.
Right.
Ray Kelly is in charge, and Ray Kelly tries to do the right thing because he gets briefed. He's the titular police commissioner at the time, and he makes a statement to the Post in an interview that says, there's a lot of hysteria here, but there is no evidence that the cop did anything wrong. We got a decorated young cop who's made a ton of gun arrests and a convicted felon who was wanted by the police. And the gun was recovered on the scene. There's no reason to believe that anything untoward happened here. And the next day, Dinkins told him, shut your mouth. And all information came out of City Hall from that day forward. The police department wasn't allowed to put anything out.
So they were steering it against you and in the favor of this Kiko Garcia.
Yeah.
And there was no way.
He had his press conference. Now, at the time, the drug dealers had already put up 2 alleged witnesses, 2 females that claimed to have seen me murder him in cold blood.
But like we talked about earlier, there were no apartments on that first floor.
Right. And that was later proven by the families.
What they alleged they saw and from where they saw it from was impossible.
Well, they'd have to come down the stairwell.
They were shown to be liars anyway, but
and
that's
only a certain amount of people could fit in the stairwell and look down at the
right.
same
But they
time.
weren't. They claimed they saw it from inside their apartment. But the big thing was a lesson from this is all you aspiring detectives, when they ask you to do a canvas, don't ever put no results or negative results. Interview the person and have them tell you exactly where they were sitting, what they saw, when they saw it, because 2 detectives that went there and did that canvas did an outstanding job. And their DD5s or complaint follow-ups of the interview of these 2 women basically cleared Mike. Basically cleared. And in fact, they wanted to indict these 2, and the Manhattan DA's office refused to indict them for perjury.
Only one testified in the grand jury. The
Okay.
other one got scared, realized, all right, they got me lying, and she didn't go anywhere near the grand jury.
Right.
But the one,
And what were those statements?
Juana Madera is the only one that actually made it into the grand jury, and she claimed that I beat him to the ground, laid him on his stomach, and shot him 3 times in his back.
Which the evidence obviously showed was totally false.
Yeah, and but here's the thing. Before the whole thing blows up, and it becomes the Washington Heights riots, the night of the shooting, 2 detectives from Manhattan North Homicide, John Lafferty and Mike Sheehan, come up to the 3-4. They had been in a homicide downtown. They were done. They stop in. They see Huey Drain. And they're like, you need anything, Huey? And Huey says, nah, it's a bunt. No issues here. He goes, if you want, you could do a canvas for me. And they're like, okay, we'll go do a canvas. And they go out with a Polaroid camera and their notebooks, and they knock on every door, and they document everybody they speak to. Both of these women, who later now come out on the media and claim to have watched me assassinate this man, tell the detectives and allow them to photograph her. Nah, I wasn't home. I was out shopping.
Wow.
By the time I got here, there was nobody in the building but police. The other woman said, I was in Brooklyn at a birthday party. That would be Juana Madera, who later testifies in the grand jury that she watched.
Right.
How she saw it from a birthday party in Brooklyn, I don't know, but that was her story.
But you know something? That's good investigation. And you see that, how important that is.
It's basic investigation.
Yeah, but it's how important it is.
But it was very
But sometimes not basic investigation isn't always done correctly, and that saved your ass.
Well, the other thing that happened, I think Jerry Giorgio found the guy that hosted the birthday party with the timestamp dated video from the party.
That's
That
great.
she was there?
There's Juana dancing.
Good. That's excellent.
So, yeah. But a great job was done.
Let me ask something also. There was some other political players back then, specifically, I remember Cardinal O'Connor was not your friend during
Cardinal
that.
O'Connor, Ruth Messenger. I'm trying to remember
Specifically, what were Cardinal O'Connor's actions towards you?
Well, after Dinkins and his cronies got up and basically said that they're going to give justice for Jose Garcia, which basically means they're going to have my head on a stick. They've already agreed to pay for his funeral, to send him back to the Dominican Republic. It's basically a royal funeral with taxpayer money. But at this O'Keefe bashing, O'Connor now gets up. And he goes on for about 15 minutes talking about the environment of misconduct in the police department, and that he will use every means at his disposal to ensure that there are no cover-ups. Nobody said anything about fucking cover-ups.
Right.
Now that's the only thing people hear. Meanwhile, I'm a rookie cop, and I got no juice at all.
Right.
Nobody's covering shit up for me.
No, of course not.
They're going to throw me to the wolves before they're going to cover anything up. But now, because His Eminence suggested that it was possible, that's all anybody believes.
What are you going through emotionally right now? Like you said, you're a rookie cop. You got 6 years on the job.
I was actually at my mother's house at this time because I'm trying
You're
to talk her off the ledge.
29 years old?
Yeah. I'm at my mother's house, and my shoe was off. It was going through the TV screen. Janet stopped me. Said,
Did you go outside yet?
That's your mother. No, I couldn't. I had the media camped out on my front door. For me to get out of my house, I had to go down through the basement, sneak out the back, and hop the fence in the backyard, and then wait for somebody to bring a car around for me.
And you're watching this unfold on the TV.
Mm-hmm.
The lies.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about you.
And my brother says, were they there? I'm like, the only one in that fucking hallway was me, Garcia, and the ghost of Elvis eating a corn dog.
Right.
I said, nobody was there. And he says, can they hurt you? I said, it depends on how well they can lie. Because I already saw the handwriting on the wall, and I fully expected to be indicted for murder.
Right.
Did you even think something like that was possible when you were in the academy?
No, of course not. Nobody thinks it's possible. It's on the level when you're in the academy. You don't realize how politically and morally fucked everything is. And that's really what it was, and it started at City Hall. But it was bad, and it stayed bad, and every day the headlines were just worse and worse and worse. And my wife's birthday was July 11th.
Wow.
So this is a week away. Already had our favorite restaurant, or her favorite restaurant, was the Seashore in City Island. I was going to take her there for her birthday, but obviously I can't leave the house.
Right.
I can't. I'd have 75.
You go to the Bronx.
Yeah, to the Bronx. The media would follow me right onto the island. So now I got to cook.
Go to Mofongo on 181.
Yeah. But I'm in.
I know
Queens.
a nice place.
Yeah.
In 180.
Now I'm getting calls. In the meantime, I get calls from the squad and from Intel that supposedly there's a hit team coming down from Massachusetts to smoke me.
So there's been
that makes you feel good.
Yeah,
right?
so now they give me a radio, an Intel radio, and the thing doesn't work. I mean, it's the biggest fucking joke in the world.
The police department has such great equipment.
You're saying they put a hit out on you.
Yeah, and my protection, they put a sector car from a 104 on the block.
2 hard charges were in that car.
Oh, yeah. I grew up in a 104. There are no hard charges. So
The 104 is
2 hard sleepers.
It's a very quiet precinct surrounded mostly by cemeteries.
Yeah.
So, although it's getting busier now, and if you really wanted to, there was a lot of mafia to fuck with in the 80s. But in any event, I'm going to make her dinner. We just got engaged like a month before this in the Bahamas and at the Courtyard Terrace. And I'm going to duplicate that dinner. I'm going to cook it on the stove at home. But I got to get out of the house to buy the ingredients. So I sneak out the back, call my friend, he drives my car around, and now I go down into Ridgewood and I hit the butcher, I hit the Edward Superstore to get all the fresh vegetables, and I make a Chateaubriand with a vegetable medley and Irish coffees and berries with fresh cream. I just duplicate that dinner to a T. And I kind of dropped the bomb on her. I said, listen, this thing uptown, it's not going well. It's not going to end well. If you had any thoughts about bailing, now is the time. And to her credit, Janet got up and poked me in the chest and said, fuck that shit, Michael O'Keefe. If I have to marry you in an orange jumpsuit on Rikers Island, I'm going to marry you. They can't beat us.
That's a good woman.
26 years later. So, but yeah.
That's a great woman.
I always get choked up when I tell that story.
Yeah, I could see. And that's why I asked you about that. That's why I wanted to go. I was so curious about what you were going through. I mean, you're a young kid. I mean, especially nowadays, like what 28 is like, like the new 40. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? By the time you were 28 back then, you were a man, but still, this job. And it helped because your girlfriend was, who had turned out to be your fiance, your wife, was also on the job. So she understood a little bit, but she didn't understand the full impact yet.
Yeah, she really had no realization of the shit that I was doing.
But you know something, Mike, with all of this shit, you always wonder, like, where is truth come in? You know what I mean? And does truth matter? Truth is all that should matter.
Well, interestingly enough, there is a hero in this story. I mean, apart from the detectives in the DA's office and the detectives in the 3-4 squad and the homicide squad, who, I mean, they did a fantastic job.
Right.
They turned over every stone. They didn't hide anything. They just brought the evidence out. My hero in this was Robert Morgenthau, because he's an elected official. And the easiest thing for him to do, for his own personal interests, is to indict me for murder and just kick it to state Supreme Court and let them figure it out. and just wash his hands of the whole thing.
Brutus. What's that?
But he didn't. He conducted the longest running, well, not the longest running, but the most extensive grand jury investigation in the history of the New York County District Attorney's Office. And because it was a grand jury and the man has integrity, things were not leaking. So I stayed public enemy number one pretty much through the month of August. And then some stuff started to leak out. I'm pretty sure the PBA put some good information out. And the story started to turn around. Somehow they were getting some of the grand jury exhibits and the evidence and the testimony were coming out in the paper and they were getting refuted. So it wasn't all one way. And to be perfectly honest, people have short attention spans. They're really tired of looking at the same footage.
Right.
They don't care what's going on in Washington Heights. Dinkins is losing his mind, however, because if the riots don't end, the Democratic National Committee is going to take away his precious convention that they're going to hold in New York for the first time.
Well, the Democratic, this happened on July 3rd. The riots started happening shortly thereafter by the next day. Mm-hmm. The riots lasted for 3 days, and the DNC was coming in on the 7th.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't that the plan? They were going to have the...
No, the convention was later than that. It was on the 7th when they basically told him, if these riots are going on, we're going to Philadelphia.
Okay.
And he lost his mind. And that's when he told the police department, that's enough of this. Nobody gets to vent anymore.
And the riots.
And his only reason for doing that, he didn't give a shit about me. He didn't give a shit about Washington Heights or the rest of the city. He wanted his convention. That was his big coming out party.
Right.
So, okay, whatever's important to you. But ultimately, it's in early September. The grand jury votes. And I get a heads up from one of the investigators in the DA's office who tells me it's going to be no true bill. It's unanimous. He says, but you got to sit on it for a while. We're giving the police department and the city an opportunity to make plans
in case it
starts up again.
Yeah.
So it's almost a week I'm sitting on that information. And I'm thinking, he fucking lied to me. I'm going to jail.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I was down in court on the day that the announcement came out, and I got to watch the press conference from a table in the back at Forlini's. Down
That must feel good.
Yeah.
I'll have a double.
Is there a big round of applause?
Yeah. Well, actually, what happened?
Well, Morgenthau gave the press conference, right?
He gave the press conference, and it was extensive. He basically turned me into super witness. So all of those defendants that I had locked up over the months, who were looking to go to trial because they figured
your case was going to be.
Yeah, I'm fresh meat. I'm fresh meat. They're going to get me in cross-examination.
Right.
All of a sudden, I'm super witness, and they all started pleading guilty one after another.
Wow.
So,
cool.
All those guys would have gotten off.
But David Dinkins, being the reasonable man he was, the day before they're going to release, the day before they tell me that I'm going to be acquitted, they go over to see Dinkins in his office, and the investigators sit down and they explain to him the impossibility of my guilt.
Right.
They lay out all the exhibits.
Mm-hmm.
He throws a fit. This is disgraceful. This will not stand. Mm-hmm. The city will not accept this verdict. You better take a piece out of that cop. Mm-hmm. He wants me done, doesn't care that I'm innocent, because that doesn't matter. It's the expediency that matters.
Yeah.
So Morgenthau reminds him, I'm also an elected official and I have my own budget, and go fuck yourself. In so many words. So Dinkins doesn't get his way.
Right.
But he's not a very forgiving man. He's not a very thoughtful man. He's not an insightful man. And he's not done with me or my anti-crime team, because he walks as a political favor over to the U.S. Attorney's Office, and he wants my anti-crime team done for civil rights offenses, for all of those gun arrests that we made. And basically, all of the alleged witnesses who civil rights we violated are all represented by the same 3 lawyers from the same firm in the Bronx. They're drug lawyers.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So they parade them into grand juries, into federal grand juries, and they all tell their story. And I'm not sure how many times they got blown out of court because the grand jurors are like, no, they're criminals. I don't believe them.
Right.
But they kept going at it and going at it and going at it. They tried to set us up. It's at the point now where I'm already cleared. I'm in the 108 squad in Queens.
How long is all this taking? 6 months, a year?
Yeah, maybe 2 years. Well, the feds were looking at us for at least 3 or 4 years. And they convened a bunch of grand juries and never got a true bill. And what they did, they got desperate. They actually brought in one of my team members, Patty Regan.
Yeah, I remember that.
And they put him on the stand, and they questioned him over the space of 8 hours over innocuous nonsense. And he got flustered, and he guessed sometimes when he just sort of said, I don't remember. Sometimes he was mistaken. Mm-hmm. Sometimes he didn't remember because it wasn't important to him. That it was important to the feds because they had the phone call on tape.
The old perjury trap.
They perjury trapped him, and Patty ended up doing a year in Fed.
Wow.
And they went to him every week. The FBI went to him while he was doing his time up in Kentucky in the Daniel Boone National Forest and asked him, "You want to flip now?"
Well, pieces of shit they are.
Well, he sent them.
Everyone always wonders why real cops hate the FBI. You know, it's just so sickening. You know,
if you read my novels, I treat the FBI with all the respect that I think they do. I worked extensively with them on several investigations, and you'll get a good idea how I feel about the FBI if you read my novels. They're not happy with me.
No.
But I don't care.
Well, before we move on to the novels, I just wanted, those riots, they lasted for 3 days. You're watching all this stuff on TV, right?
The riots lasted for longer than 3 days.
Really?
The heat of the riots were 3 days.
Okay.
But there was sporadic stuff going on for the better part of a month.
Burning cars up there.
Burning cars, throwing bricks through windows,
firing
shopping,
Uzis in the air, right?
Firing guns in the air.
There's hits out for you.
Yeah.
Drug cartel hits.
Yeah.
When can you come out?
I end up getting sent back to work probably third week of July, and they obviously can't send me to the 3-4. So they put me in the 2-4 in the borough.
Yeah, I remember you in it.
And I was supposed to be in the wheel, on the wheel, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to jail, so I'm not real agreeable to my assignment. And, you know, I'm getting into arguments with captains and telling them to go fuck themselves. So I don't want to be picking up phones in the first fucking place. And what are you going to do to me? I'm going to fucking jail. So they wouldn't let me pick the phone up anymore. Mm-hmm. So I split my time in the 2-4, either sunbathing on a roof or lifting weights down in the gym because I'm going to the can. I got to get big. Yeah, so they really were really happy for me when I finally got into the detective bureau and they put me in Queens.
You were preparing for prison.
I was preparing for prison.
You went to the 108 as a white shield?
Yeah.
To the RIP unit?
Yes.
For doing your job.
Yeah, and I did, it was the last place I wanted to be. I actually did a contract. Cocktail Jack Walsh.
Yes, yeah.
Jack told me they're not going to let you go to the 4-6 squad. I'm like, well, I want to go there. He goes, all right, I'll get it done. So the transfers come down now. My entire group going into the detective bureau.
How did you get into the detective bureau though? After?
Well, I had actually interviewed for the detective bureau months before the shooting.
So your name came up.
I was going there anyway.
Okay.
If I hadn't gotten into the shooting, I probably would have been in the 3-4 squad by September.
All right.
But I got the contract now to go to the 4-6 squad.
You still living in Queens?
Yeah, but I was going to buy a house upstate.
Okay.
So, you know,
because that's a commute.
Yeah, well, you know, I was actually looking at houses in Throgsneck.
All right.
Over by Silver Beach.
That's a nice area.
Yeah, I almost bought a house over by Silver Beach. But, so the contract's done. I'm going to the 4-6. And sure enough, the orders come down, and I'm going to the 4-6 squad for 13 minutes. And then the telephone call comes in from the police commissioner's office. And I am reassigned to the 108 squad.
Wow.
Oh,
fuck, Long Island City.
So now you're not moving upstate no more.
Yeah, exactly. So now I look into it. I'm like, all right, who shot me down? And it's Chief Salvaggi at the time. I just made chief of patrol. He was the chief of Manhattan North when the shooting went down.
Yes.
And but Mario says, I'll look into it for you. And he liked my mother. They got along very well. She thought he was wonderful. So, and I guess he was to her. But he ends up calling me at home, laughing. He goes, you're not making friends. I don't know if you're aware of this. He goes, but yeah, that got squashed personally by the police commissioner. I'm like, why? I says, well, I'll tell you what he said. Mike O'Keefe will work in the 4-6 squad when monkeys fly out of my ass. There you go.
Well, they didn't want you to go to a place where there was
They didn't want me shooting more
Dominicans.
Dominicans. That's really what it was, which is kind of funny because even going to the Sleepy 108, I kind of still lived under the same black cloud. I kept running into miscreants with guns.
Yeah.
And I almost smoked 2 Dominicans from a commercial robbery pattern.
Wow.
On a car stop. So I was like, wow, that wouldn't have gone over well.
So when you got back to the 108, you're in the squad now.
Yeah, in the 108 squad. The RIP, actually it was a RIP. They had the
robbery.
RIP
How was
burglary.
the 108?
Good place to eat, good place to shop, good place to drink. Not a great place to be the police because there wasn't much going on. But I still managed, to do good work and learn my trade.
Right.
But then my 18 months were up, and the 5 guys that I went into that squad with all got promoted, and I didn't.
You didn't get your gold shield?
I had to wait another year. My gold shield got
So it wasn't in the...
No one would ever tell me. Because of the federal investigation.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So, but when I did finally get promoted, the very next day, another order came down backdating the promotion to the day it was supposed to be.
So you got
So
your
I got
money.
I got the back time, the back money, and yeah. As hard as
Now,
they made
during all
it.
of that time, did the feds ever personally come to you and try to get you to testify?
No, they were being very careful and cagey about that. And the way it was explained to me was, at the time, I was still being regarded in law enforcement circles as a hero.
Yeah.
All right. They have to work with local law enforcement agencies. And the reason they have to work with local law enforcement agencies, is because if they didn't, no one would go to fucking jail.
Yeah.
The reason why the FBI has federal task forces in every major city in the country is because somebody's got to put handcuffs on somebody.
Right.
And they're nitwits. They're not doing it.
Right.
So they're very careful and cagey about going after me.
This goes so counter to what the public thinks. The public thinks like the FBI, these godlike law enforcement creatures.
Well, in my books, I think the way I describe it is they couldn't find their own asses with an ice pick.
Yeah.
Is the way I phrase it.
Well, they're college grads. A lot of them with accounting degrees.
Well, you see that guy Strzok. I mean, that's a guy you want to smack, right? The guy who testified, Strzok, who was the one who ran the investigation against Trump.
They have no real ties to the community. They don't have any CIs. You know who their CIs are? Cops.
Yeah.
That's where they go to for the information.
Yeah, people like flip.
Yeah. So, you're in the school. I wanted to ask you about the talking to the troops. Didn't you do a press conference after the shooting?
I didn't do a press conference, no. I was interviewed by the Post. I was later a guest of the PBA.
Oh yeah, you were. Yeah, that's
rally.
what I'm talking about. For the rally, you were asked to speak to the troops.
I told Phil Caruso, I don't think this is a good idea.
And what was that rally for? That was for you or for?
No, at the time, and it was never going to pass. Dinkins was pushing a civilianized CCRB, and it was never going to pass.
Right.
This was one of those things that the politicians are going to make noise, but they're never going to vote for it. For some reason, they panic and they pull the trigger and they have this rally. And every time in my career, every time that we had a rally, it blew up in our faces. If you remember the incident with the Larry Davis shooting.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Just, we end up being the villains and lambasted for 2 weeks in back of that. And I told Phil Caruso, I'm like, this is not a good idea. Cops do not fucking behave themselves. There's going to be alcohol. They're going to be all raised up. They're going to be pumped up. It's just, I don't think it's going to be good for us. And I was right. But before they went crazy and took the bridge, I end up getting carried on people's shoulders up onto the podium. So now I'm stuck on the podium and they stick a microphone in my hand. And I took the opportunity to thank everybody who stood by me. But that's as much as I wanted to have anything to do with it. It was,
You know what I remember was a great story, and you could correct me if this is right or wrong, but I remember Dinkins went up to the 3-4 to talk to an outgoing platoon.
Yeah.
And Estevillo said to the platoon before he got there, no one say a word. Don't say anything. And Dinkins went and addressed the fort, and he didn't say 10 words, and Tommy Barnett, who was the PBA delegate for the 3-4, screamed, why did you pay for that drug dealer's funeral? And Dinkins was, you're a liar. And he goes, no, you're a liar. He was screaming. In fact, I said that was the greatest thing. I would have loved to have watched.
Well, actually, Dinkins was yelling, that's bullshit, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
So then the newspaper reporters asked him, did you curse at the cops? He's like, I never cursed at the cops. And, well, isn't this you? Whatever.
And I think they tried to transfer Barnett, but he was the delegate.
They did transfer him. They transferred him. That lasted about 2 tours.
Yeah.
And then he got sent back.
That's great.
But,
How long did you stay in the 108 squad?
I was in the 108 squad. Believe it or not, my transfer to get out of there, engineered by Joe Esposito. It was August of 1995. And about the month before, I had made friends with Joe. He was the CO of the 3-4 now, when they were in the process of doing the split. And he sees me at this racket in New Jersey, and I guess I got a puss on. And he says, what the fuck's wrong with you? I says, you want to know what's wrong with me? If I don't get out of that fucking borough of Queens, I'm going to take the chief hostage. I don't belong there. Yeah. He laughs. He goes, you want to come work? And at the time, he had just gone back to the 8-3. He was the CO of the 8-3. And he says, you want to come work for me in the 8-3 in my RIP unit? I was like, you get me transferred to Brooklyn North. I'll be over at your house every day to walk your dog and wash your car. He's like, you don't need to do that. You just make some gun collars and robbery collars. I'm like, if I can do that in Long Island City, you don't think I can do it on Knickerbocker Avenue? He's like, I know you can. 3 weeks later, the transfer comes down. When no one will touch me with a 10-foot pole, Joe Esposito is the guy with the 11-foot pole.
Right.
Wow, that's great.
And he brings me to the 8-3. But the day that the order comes down for the transfer,
here we go again.
I'm in federal court watching my partner, Patty Regan, be convicted of perjury.
Wow.
By the feds for something he never did.
And you know what was so egregious about that, too, was not only did he get convicted and have to do a year, they sent him to Kentucky, if I'm not right.
That was, that was intentional.
That was more punishment, yeah.
That was intentional. There's no way to get to Kentucky except with a connecting flight.
Right.
And they're very expensive. It's in the middle of the Daniel Boone National Forest. So even if you go there, you have to drive 2 hours from where all the hotels are just to get to the prison. So I ended up visiting him twice in the year that he was there. A bunch of us, managed to get out there.
What's he doing today?
He is doing very, very well. He owns a business with his brothers. They're carpenters and construction guys. They do office interiors in Manhattan. So like when a big corporate entity buys out a floor of, say, for instance, a Chrysler building, they rip everything out, and Patty and his brothers go in there, and they sheetrock it. They do all the custom cabinetry. Patty's an old world artist and carpenter.
He was off the boat Irish, right?
Yeah. From
I remember his sister worked in a 2-4.
Yeah,
they got their pound of flesh though. They got it from somebody.
Yeah. Disgraceful, right?
Yeah. Well, you know what? They spent $6 million. Somebody had to go to jail, so they framed somebody.
It's despicable. It really is. It's so horrible to think that that's the way the government works. Like the reality of it.
Yeah.
You know, if they're coming after you, they're gonna get you, man.
You saw the clowns during the whole thing.
What?
It just keeps happening over and over again.
What I've learned to pay attention to, when I hear someone who's supposed to be in authority drop a phrase like "the greater good," the fucking's coming.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That's somebody that's going to throw somebody to the wolves.
Right.
Because it's about the truth or it's nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
So
that's what I tried to explain to a friend of mine when we were talking about police work, and he was talking about macro, and I'm like, no, it's micro. There's these new words people are using. I said, you got to take every single case of so-called police brutality one at a time. It's not a question of general numbers. These are all specific incidents. You can't lump them all up they're all the same, and one person's going to pay the penalty for that.
Right.
If every cop is not getting indicted for those particular cases, doesn't mean that the next one is going to be handled any differently. It's separate, its own investigation.
But who suffers for this, really? The public, right? When you tie the hands of the police, and the police aren't going to want to do their job anymore, or won't do their job anymore. Who suffers?
It's the public, obviously.
Yeah. Look at Chicago.
So it has a chilling effect on cops.
Yeah. Chicago, no one's doing their job there anymore.
Oh, would you?
No, absolutely not.
And you got first grade the whole time you were in RIP, or did you go to major case?
I didn't go to major case. I pretty much understood if I was going to stay on the job, I was going to, probably my career path would have been to the Homicide Squad, and then from there maybe to the Terrorist Task Force. My old partner, Johnny Moynihan, is a sergeant in terrorists right now. And
that seems to be the way to go these days.
It's, it's God's work.
Yeah, well, and also if you want to work and once you retire, that is such a stepping stone to a great job in the private sector.
Yeah.
You know?
When did you start thinking about writing? Was it while you were on the job?
When I was in the 8th grade.
Yeah.
Yeah, miraculous medal. I had an English teacher. Her name was Ann Wintergurst. And she was smoking hot. So she got my attention.
That'll always motivate you.
There you go. And it was my first introduction to creative writing.
Did she tell you what a great writer you are, Michael?
Actually, she told me, like all my teachers, she told me I was a disobedient pain in the ass. It's not smart, but not manageable. But I discovered that I liked writing.
She was an English teacher?
Yeah. Well, she actually is the head of the English department at St. John's University now.
Wow.
Dr. Wintergurst. I saw her again for the first time in like 40 years at our 40th reunion for Miraculous Medal, graduating.
Wow, that's
and
great.
She still looks great. But that was my first introduction to creative writing, and I kind of stuck with it. And
Do you remember the paper that you wrote that got her attention?
I didn't get her attention.
No, I mean that liked it, that she liked it.
I don't know that she ever liked it.
Well, what made
But she
you?
made
I
you,
liked it.
But you made her write. She made you write. It was part of the course.
It was part of the course. It was a creative writing course, and I liked
thought
it.
maybe that she had encouraged you and said, "Oh."
I'm sure she did, but it doesn't stick in my memory.
But you liked
right
it. You
now.
liked writing.
Yeah, I liked writing.
So you were going on.
And then when I went to high school, I had opportunities.
Did you
to
keep
submit.
journals?
Yeah, well, my notebooks were journals.
How many of those through your whole career?
I
your whole
just
life?
found one from high school, actually, in a storage facility. It's pretty cool.
How was that cool looking back?
It was like Brett Kavanaugh.
What do you think about it when you look at it now?
I was laughing. I was like, boy, I didn't know shit about Dick. But, yeah, all through high school, St. Francis Prep, it's a creative environment. We had poetry journals, magazines, newspapers. So I got an opportunity to submit poetry and written work there. And when I went to college, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to be. Started out taking accounting. That sucked. And then I started on an English major program at Iona. But I ended up leaving. Bartending and rugby kind of got in the way of my academic progress. I don't regret it. From there, I went, believe it or not, to the School of Visual Art in Manhattan. I was an illustrator. I was an artist.
Oh, wow.
And
So you've always had this creative streak.
Yeah, I actually did the cover of my forthcoming short story book, 13 Stories, is my own drawing. I drew it. It's a charcoal rendering of a spooky tree.
I'm going to check it out.
Yeah, I'll show it to you later. I have it on my phone. And I'll send you one when it's published.
So let me ask so you have this talent and this inkling for writing.
Yeah.
Is it from you want to write about your life or you want to write creatively?
I just want to write.
Yeah.
I want to write creatively.
Short stories?
Yeah. And obviously your life comes into it. Yeah, when I was in college, while I was at the School of Visual Art, I realized fairly quick into it, I don't want to be an artist. But they had a really good creative writing program. So I loaded up on English courses and doing that, and I got a handful of short stories and plays and poems published in student journals. I left there, and now I'm going to go into the police academy, but my investigator is not going to send me in right away. I kind of...
Moving violations?
No, I kind of jerked off for about 2 years. I kept, I'll come in there.
You weren't sure you wanted the job.
I'll say, I don't want, I don't want an educational hold. And now she decides
Now you're going to make you wait.
She's going to make me wait. And, well, the other issue, when I go up to see her, I show up, I'm wearing, you're talking about 1984. I'm wearing a $700 suit. I got a bunch of earrings in my left ear, including a big diamond stud that's bigger than her engagement ring. And I got a brand new car out at the curb and no payment books.
Mm-hmm.
And I got no declarable income.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a full-time student. She's like, you're either selling drugs or you got an ass-kicking off-the-books job.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, I don't sell drugs. I was bartending and I was doing construction off the books. I had more money than I knew what to do with. For that 6 months, I had to wait to get into the academy. I had to actually get on the books. It cut my income to a third.
You were hustling.
Well, I had to pay the tax man now.
My parents just gave me a lot of money. They gave me a big allowance. That didn't work.
I didn't live with my parents.
Oh, okay.
No, that was never getting over.
Check.
I was never getting over. But
So you were writing plays too, huh? What kind of plays did you write?
like one-act plays.
How many characters in them?
5 or 6. You know, with speaking parts, obviously you're going to reference more characters than that.
How
about
is
screenplays?
it to write dialogue? You good at that?
I think that's the strength of my writing.
I think that's one of the hardest things to do.
It is one of the hardest things to do.
The banter in Shot to Pieces is really well. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Between the, you managed to capture the banter between police officers in the middle of handling a case. Because when you read or watch TV shows, they're always talking up police work, but you don't do that. You could be handling a homicide and talking about the Mets yesterday, how they fucked up the game.
Right. Yeah.
And you captured that. And that's what I appreciated a lot about Shot to Pieces so far, what I've read. I really enjoy it.
Well, I wrote Shot to Pieces as much as it's a police procedural. I didn't want it to be about the police work. I wanted it to be a human story.
Right.
Because at the time that I started writing it was a real bad time for cops in this country. And the thing that really galled me was
when did you start writing it?
Let's see. I published it in 2016 in the summer. I guess probably 2014 I started writing it.
How long did it take you?
2 years to get it into publication. I probably wrote the thing in like 7 or 8 months.
Wow.
Like the first draft, but then there's the editing process, which is...
That's torturous.
It's torturous,
imagine,
yeah.
Right?
Like, it is.
Killing
It is. You
babies.
have to be... Yeah, you're killing babies. You have to be honest with yourself and
I
trust
love it,
other
but
people.
it's not fitting. Right?
Yeah.
I love this,
exactly.
I love this story,
Yeah.
but it doesn't.
Well, they call
fit
it
in,
actually. Stephen King calls it "killing your darlings."
Yeah.
Because when it's time to cut to the bone. It's a bit like killing your own children, but it must be done. Okay, Steve.
Yeah.
He sold a few books.
Yeah.
I'll listen to him.
You know, Mark was talking about, and I really appreciated your characterizations in the book and the dialogue. And to me, one of my favorite, probably the best police show I think of all time was The Wire. And one of the reasons was I caught the language of the street perfectly, just perfectly. You know, like when I listened to the language they were talking, I was like, that was so great. That was so great, you know. And I mean, you have a lot of that in your book, but that's the key because, you know, when you're watching Law and Order and you're watching SV, you're like, oh, come on, this is a Hollywood bullshit version of police work, you know. And it's not the real street.
That was the other goal of Shot to Pieces. I'm watching them, not just the media, but the former president of the United States suggesting that cops are running and gunning and trying to kill black people. Mm-hmm. That we get off on that. And it's counterintuitive. It's against human nature. And you never see it in a program. You never read it in a book. The incredible psychological cost of having to actually take someone else's life.
Right.
It's devastating. It is, and it's been called by no less an authority than Lieutenant Colonel David Grossberg, who wrote the definitive textbook on post-traumatic stress disorder. It is the most psychologically repugnant thing that you can do.
Right.
And many people can't do it. They choose their own death rather than take deadly physical force against somebody else. And the suffering that each individual cop goes through having taken someone's life. And I know personally, I mean, I almost strangled my wife in our bed, having that nightmare again. If you knew what I knew, if you lived what I lived through, you would understand that it's nonsense.
Right.
Nobody wants to kill anyone else. And if they do, they're a psychopath and they shouldn't have been cops in the first place.
Absolutely.
But there are so few of them. It's a stringent screening process.
Sure.
So I wanted to bring that out. I wanted to illustrate from a very personal standpoint what post-traumatic stress is actually like, and the fact that it's present every time you're in a shooting, and it compounds on
The
itself.
lead character in the book suffers a lot from that.
Yeah, and I actually have Patty's. I think he's only got 3 kills in the book, or like a total of 3. I only have 1, but it was in a dozen gunfights. And the thing that causes the stress, oftentimes, isn't the act of actually taking someone's life. It's the responsibility of knowing you may have to.
Right.
And that's what beats down on the individual. It's people that suffer PTSD in combat. It's because they spent days and weeks and months in a combat zone knowing that today I got to kill somebody. Today I got to kill somebody. Today I got to kill somebody. And they may never kill anyone. But that responsibility.
Or just knowing that
It takes its toll.
Yeah, just knowing that if you're put in that position that you're going to do the right thing, that you're going to...
One of the nice things with police work is we work with partners. I have a responsibility to them. So I might be willing to sacrifice my own life to not use deadly physical force.
Right.
But he's not in on the deal.
Sure,
I have a responsibility to him.
To save his life, yeah.
So, you do hopefully what you should do. And then sort it out later.
How therapeutic is the writing for you?
It's magnificent. It's that's the other thing. When you read Shot to Pieces, you're going to see that Patty is I don't want to say deeply disturbed, but he has been deeply disturbed, and he has a pretty grim upbringing and experience in his early life. That didn't come out of the vapor. I'm experienced in those things, and it's reflected in Patty Durr.
Was it autobiographical?
Largely, a lot of it was,
but not all of it. Not all of it.
Well, what it is pretty much everything that occurs. If you look at the plot, everything occurred, but I might have added some drama and changed some facts just for the purpose of advancing the story or just making the story.
It's a novel.
It's a novel. It's a novel.
Right.
It's but all the police work is genuine. It's all stuff that actually occurred.
Sure.
And the people, the peripheral characters, the useless guy in the command and in the squad, and the good guys, those you just change their names, right?
Oh, to be perfectly honest, most of the useless guys are usually composites of like several useless guys. So
You took the best useless, the most useless part of each of them, and created one character.
Guys.
Yeah, but
one useless, one empty suit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So,
but
let me ask you, with the writing, and obviously, I think that every cop that's done 20 years, 25 years, whatever, has hundreds and thousands of stories. And not every cop can put it down on paper and explain and really, and I could see that being, like you said, it's very therapeutic.
Yeah.
Telling your story, I mean, that's an amazing thing. And having people read your story is another thing.
It's not just my story, it's a compelling story, hopefully.
Right.
And if I do my job, it's a compelling story. But the whole point, you could put together a book of war stories. And they're a book of war stories.
Right.
You could do the same, I could do the same. Anybody who's had this kind of experience can do the same. But what does that book mean? It doesn't mean anything. In order to tell a compelling story, there has to be a hero's journey.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what a hero's journey is you have your main character, and he fights his way through, or she, through challenges, And they're fundamentally changed by conquering these challenges. And by the end of the book, they're a different person than how you introduced them. And it's an arc, it's a character arc, and it doesn't always have to be successful. You could have tragedies where the main character, doesn't overcome it, and he dies. But that's the hero's journey, and it makes it compelling. It's my opinion that every cop that sits down and writes that collection of vignettes is shortchanging himself, because if he looked really hard, he'd find his own hero story, and he could make a compelling book. But some guys can't do that.
Right.
It's that's a
What's your
writer's
process
thing.
like? I mean, do you have a set amount of hours that you write every day? How many hours do you?
It's never set. It's when I get the urge. I'm on my computer. Yeah, I'm on my computer every day, looking at my emails, and when I get done with that and social media and I'm bored, I open up whatever I'm working on, and I start working on it, and I make progress. And sometimes I get to the point where I'm not feeling it today. I don't have anything else to say. But as long as I'm in there and the story's flowing and it's growing and it's moving forward, I'll keep writing and just go to the gym later.
And then you realize a whole day has gone by and you're still in your pajamas.
Well, interestingly enough, the book that I'm trying to get published right now, it's called A Reckoning in Brooklyn. It's the prequel to Shot to Pieces. Patty Durr appears in it as a 17-year-old. It's a 1979 Bushwick story where I reimagine the Pizza Connection case. I wrote that in 3 weeks on the recliner in my family room. I had blown out my Achilles playing baseball, and I went back to the gym too quickly, and I gave myself an infection.
Wow.
So when I went back to the surgeon, he's like, "I'm not giving you a boot. I'm not even giving you a bandage. You're going home and you're going to sit with the foot reclined for 3 weeks." I was like, shit. So I basically sat there with my laptop, and I had an idea that I wanted to write this story. And it just, I couldn't even get up to go to the bathroom. I had to use a walker to get to the bathroom. Mm-hmm. So pretty much I sat there 8, 9, 10, 15 hours a day writing that novel. And granted, it was the first draft. I mean, I've edited it probably 20 times already. But that book is ready to go now. Mm-hmm. It's just waiting for an agent to buy it.
Wow.
But yeah, that was 3 weeks.
You got a writing room?
Yeah, it's called my kitchen.
Oh, so you just sit in the kitchen?
Yeah. I get bothered by the dog. I get bothered by.
Were you writing when you were on the job?
Right?
I'm sorry, what?
Were you writing when you were on the job?
I actually took a break from writing when I was on the job because who has time? First of all, particularly in the detective chart. But what I did, and I kind of pissed off my supervisors. Early in my detective career, I had a really crazy robbery case in Queens, and it was a good case. Got the guy, got the machine gun, got everything. But some of the old-time detectives gave me some really bad advice. They're like, the less you write, the better. Mm-hmm. Bare bones, don't put anything in there. Mm-hmm. So I did that. And a year and a half later, I'm on the stand with my thumb in my ass, looking like an idiot because I couldn't remember anything. So from that day forward, and I got a conviction on that case, thank God. The DA did a great job. And I threw myself on the mercy of the jury. Mea culpa, I got some bad advice. I was a rookie detective. And they ended up liking me and hating the defense counsel who's trying to beat me up. So from that day forward, my DD5s, I wrote in the form of narrative stories. Like they read, like stories. Yeah. And one of my first bosses in the bureau, Gary Leone, he was a sergeant in the 8-3 Rep, came out into the office and said, "Why do I always need a thesaurus and a dictionary to read your fives?" I'm like, "It's a funny story." "I bet it isn't. Knock it off." And I told him why, and he was like, "All right, keep doing it."
I used to write my cases, my fives like that as well.
Well, see, the nice thing about it is the end result of it was the homicide that I am actually is the centerpiece of the novel that I just finished at home called Burned to a Crisp. Was an arson, triple murder in the 8-3.
I like your titles.
Yeah. Well, they're always based on the homicide case. Uh-huh. So, and Shot to Pieces actually works two ways. It's metaphorically what Patty's done to himself, self-destructing his own life, and the homicide victim is basically ambushed and shot to pieces. A Reckoning in Brooklyn, the mob's going to get it in that one. You know that. Mm-hmm. And Burned to a Crisp is, obviously, it's an arson triple murder. Wow, I completely lost myself there. Where were we talking about?
We're talking about writing your process. The reason why I asked you about the sitting down, do you have a room to write in? Well, when I retired, for 2 years, I wrote every single day. And I had a process. I'd wake up and it was like I mentioned about, you go outside and it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you're still in your pajamas. I remember going to the gym and thinking, what am I doing here? Nobody's paying me to do this. I was writing for a magazine at the time. I was writing a solo show.
I don't go to the gym for any other reason but longevity. Because after what the city did to me and the police department did to me in 1992, it's a moral imperative for me to live to be 117. They're going to pay me.
Forever.
They're going to pay me. This is how old I want to get. I want to get so old that every month they send 2 detectives from the pension section out to my house to put my check in my hand to verify I'm still alive. And I already told my kids, I changed my will. I used to have a DNR. And it occurred to me, I'm like, nah, screw that. And I told my son, I'm tearing this up.
Resuscitate me.
Keep me alive by any means necessary. The money will already be going into your checking account. I don't care. I'm not going to be there to complain. Just keep me alive.
I had a joke about that. He said, I didn't want a DNR, I want a DR, do resuscitate.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you were looking for, I guess, another publisher or editor for, not an editor, a publisher for your new book.
The way that it's very difficult.
One that you could do on one by one, or you get a deal? Like a 3-book deal, let's say.
I'm ready to sign a 3-book deal. I already have the bones for a 3-book deal to complete it. I could complete that. Well, I'm not going to tell them how quick I can complete it. But what I need first is an agent, and an agent to sell me to Big 5 Publishing. Because once you get hooked up with a publishing house, now they're paying for the publicity. I'll do anything. I mean, to be honest, I'll be an agent's wet dream because I'll do anything.
Yeah.
Just tell me what to do. I'm a neophyte in the writing world. I don't know how to publicize. I'm learning things.
There's so many things you have to know, right?
Yeah.
There's too many things.
Yeah.
How about screenplays and getting, let's say, for example, do you have a screenplay version of Shot to Pieces?
I do not, but I can convert it to a screenplay very easily. What I am working on now, one of my short stories called Tick, Tick, Boom, which is going to appear in the short story book, I converted into a screenplay for a pilot. My friend that made the book trailer with me. We collaborated on that, and we basically came up with the first episode for a series. Now what I have to do is storyboard the rest of the series, and then do a treatment for what we expect it to be, and then one or both of us are going to probably try and shop it to like Netflix or HBO or something. But I think it would make a very interesting series.
And which one is that? The Boom Boom?
Tick, Tick, Boom.
Tick, Tick, Boom.
You know something, Mike? There's no rush to do any of this stuff. You got all the time in the world, and you're writing, and you're doing it, you know?
You're right, but my personality...
Yeah, I'm the same
It's got to happen yesterday.
Right, I'm the same way.
And my wife is like, you got all the time in the world.
Type
You're retired.
A.
I'm like, no.
Bill,
I'm 56 years old. I hear the clock ticking.
Right,
I don't have time.
Bill calls me every day. So what do you think we should do about promoting this thing? We got to get more listeners. And I'm like, all right, listen, relax, easy. We're promoting it one step at a time. And every day it's like talking to him, like, it's going to be okay, Bill.
I'm type
It's
A
going to pay.
like that, you know?
It's going to be okay.
Well, what I discovered now getting into publishing, the only people in a hurry are the writers. Nobody else is in a hurry. Like I'll send the manuscript out as a query, and you read right in the agent's profile. Turn around in about 6 weeks. It's 9 months later they haven't gotten back to me, and you reach out to them on email. They tell you they're still looking at it. I'm like, really?
No one does anything quick in the entertainment business. You know,
I mean, I
nothing's done
think
quickly.
eventually you're going to get to a point where you're going to start pitching. You're going to have these ideas.
I've done that already.
And you're going to, if they like an idea.
Yeah, but they should be coming to him. He's good. They should be coming to him at this point, you know?
Unfortunately, that's not
There's
the way
a lot of good people.
It's not the way the world works.
Yeah.
You know, until you know, well, Michael mentioned earlier about, you know, he's a neophyte. And the reality is, when you get the position of power and you become like the little guy from Elf, that was the actor. You know, remember the scene where he comes in and he's got that little book that he leaves behind and it's got all his stories in it, and he's just pitching the ideas. Because once you pitch these ideas, if they like them, the three of them, hey, you know what? Give me a 3-page on that, or give me a 10-page on that. You know what I'm saying? And then before you actually start developing a whole screenplay that nobody's going to buy, you're already getting paid for it. So here's your 3 pages, your 10 pages, your log line. You know what I'm saying? Give me the rest of the money and I'll finish this for you in a certain amount of time. And I think you're well on the way. I'm looking forward to reading the short story book. I love short stories. What are those? Are all your stories police stories, or do you write
actually,
about other stuff?
Probably half of the stories are crime related, but I think only one of them is actually a police story. It's based upon a really bad tour my partner, Tommy McPartland, and I had up in the Heights.
It's all one day?
Well, no, it's actually 26 years later at another cop's funeral, discussing I Don't Have Any Regrets, and Patty Dara, who is a character in this story, says, I wish I could say the same. And he reminds Tommy, his character's Tommy McPhee in the book, reminds him of that horrible... they actually did a great job and saved somebody's life, and because they saved this much's life, he turned around and he ended up killing a cop 5 years later.
Wow.
Yeah, and it basically harkens back to the murder of police officer John Williamson, the housing cop on 173rd Street.
And
that's called
off the roof, right?
No, a bucket of spackle. The name of that story is No Mulligans. Mulligans of
do-over.
Yeah, it's a do-over in golf. There are no mulligans in police work. You don't know what you know until you know it. And you can't predict what you need to know when you need to know it. But
you're competing when you go out there. It's almost like you're in a competition. You know what I'm saying? You're going to run the best race that you can. You're not always going to win, but you're going to give it 100%.
Yeah, well, my theory on policing, and I'm very proud of my career, because my rule was do the right thing. Don't show me the book. I don't care about the book. I'm going to do the right thing. What's the right thing? What I decide is right. And I stayed true to that.
Right.
And I didn't have to violate the rule book too much. Stretched it a little, maybe.
I think what's interesting, too, even in your main character, Patty Durr, is the moral compass.
Yeah.
The where you start off from and what you believe is right. That never changes. How you react to it, or when you decide to do the right thing, those things change. But you always know when you're doing the wrong thing. You know when you're doing the right. You know when you have to do the right thing. So, and that's through this interview, I noticed a couple things. First of all, how much you care. You know what I'm saying? How much all this has meant to you. That it's not a joke. You know what I'm saying? That this is there's a sensitivity that you have to be a creative person. You know what I'm saying? We talked about writing, and there's a lot of cops who may have great stories to tell at a bar, but they're really not a sensitive soul. You know what I'm saying? So they're not going to be able to get it down on paper. As much as they have the stories, they could give them to somebody else could write it, but you need that basis. You got to have that sensitivity in your soul, the empathy to understand the other side of it, because you got to tell a full story, not just from your perspective. All the characters in your story have to have their own arc. As small as the characters are, they are living their own lives. And the best writers can show you, even with 1 or 2 lines on a small character, exactly who that person is, or at least a good portion of them are. And that's one thing I enjoyed a lot about reading Shot to Pieces, and I'm looking forward to reading the short stories and all the other great titles that you got coming out.
Yeah.
You know, I would just want to say, and obviously we're semi-new in the podcast business here. This is going to be our 10th and 11th episode. And, we're trying to build an audience, but I hope that cops not just support us, but support you, because here you are, this great cop, and you're trying something different. You're trying to write, and it's almost like you need to shove it in their face for them to buy one of your books. I'm like trying to push it on. Hey, come on, guys, buy his book. Yeah. Support this guy.
I do very well in police things. I did great. I was at the DEA convention. Got rid of probably close to 80 books. Very well received. obviously it's our story. It's a detective story. Tomorrow night, as a matter of fact, I'm going to be at the Honor Legion meeting in the Bronx. I've done a couple of those. I do very well at those. So yeah, I mean, with respect to the cops, if
I'm not
we
putting
happen
them down.
to,
I just want them to buy your book.
I understand. If we happen to be at the same venue and I'm there, they're very receptive.
Yeah.
But everybody's got their life to lead, you know?
Yeah.
Also true, when you get a couple of cops together and they're busting balls, maybe, you know, are they going into their pockets? You know, everybody wants something for nothing. I just did a gig.
Yeah.
It was a police benefit, a PBA benefit, and the cop shows up there and he's trying to get in. And it's like, you don't understand. All the money's going towards this cause to help, you know, widows and children's fund.
Yeah.
Give the freaking $20, get your free beer, and buy another one.
I deal with that at these police events, and you usually tell right up, all right, the guy's trying to shake me down for free.
Yeah,
free beer.
And I have to tell him, I'm like, hey, fucko, I'm the police. More the police than you were the police. The police don't give it away.
That's right.
Go in your pocket or get lost. You're in my way. And then you guilt them, and they go reach in and they pull the 20 out.
The positive, I've had nothing. You know, you spend a lot of time on the job, scared, especially if you have like a hidden thing like that, the writing thing that, you know, you don't want the other guys busting your balls over it. They might take your enthusiasm. It might not be cool. You know what I'm saying?
That was never my experience. I actually we used to have informal book clubs in the squad.
But my point is that is a misconception. Once you open up about what you like creatively and you're not scared to tell the guys, then you'll hear from somebody else.
Yeah.
It's not so much the job, it's just men in general. Oh, you know what? I like to do a needlepoint too. You got to check out something I got over the house. You know,
not needlepoint.
But once I got involved, like I got involved in acting early on when I was in the police department. Then I got involved in stand-up. And through the whole ride, just nothing but support. Now that we're doing the podcast, and I'm handing out, you know, we got cards that we give out, you know, and members of the service, more than enthusiastic, and they line up after my shows. Hey, let me get one of those cards. I want to check out the podcast. And the numbers here are growing. And we're going to have you back, man. We'd love to have you back and be able to help you get the word out on the next couple of books.
That would be awesome.
And catch up with you again. And this has been a wonderful experience, man. And I appreciate you sharing your time with us.
I appreciate you guys
and telling us
me.
the story. It was fascinating.
Yeah, no, it was a great experience for me. It was a lot of fun.
This was wonderful, man.
Yeah.
Bill, any parting words?
No, yeah, I mean, I admire him because, I secretly want to be a writer, but I don't think I have the talent, or maybe I just don't have the ability to attach my ass to the seat for more than an hour at a time.
Well, you know, one thing about writing, and, you know, obviously he's a more accomplished writer than I am, but the one thing I realize you're gonna hate. It's such a torturous thing.
Yeah.
I remember the time, you know, having to submit my this column that I used to write for this magazine. We had a deadline, and smashing my head off the wall just because I wasn't done yet, and I wasn't ready yet, and I wasn't finished. Or when I thought I was finished, and they'd send it back to me. It's it's torture. It's so scary. Because you know how much of it's going to take out of your day. Yeah. And you know how many times...
Your blood and sweat is in the project already.
Yeah. And you know what's good, and you know it's not. And sometimes you don't know if it's good. You thought it was good, you go back to read it. One thing I used to do a lot is I used to write it and then read it the next day.
Yeah.
And then the next day I'm like, that's horrible.
Right.
That's fucking horrible.
Yeah.
And then I start changing things.
I actually... I have an unfair advantage because my wife is phenomenal. I write a chapter or a section of a chapter, and she's there to sit down to let me read it to her. And it's my first beta reading. I actually get to hear my words in my own ears. Mm-hmm. And she listens, and she's got a great ear. She doesn't write herself, but she's got a great ear, and she's got great ideas. And I get immediate feedback. I call it my first edit. And it's just, my writing has improved demonstrably because of Janet's involvement.
That's great.
So,
and it's very helpful to have an ear that you trust.
From Stephen King, though.
You know,
I didn't read his book.
Stephen King does the same thing. His wife's his editor.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Well, he's been with her forever. He did like me. Yeah. He did it first, though. Yeah. All of my books are dedicated to my wife.
That's great.
That's great.
So, yeah.
No, that's great because that's part of having a companion for life. It's just that they have to be somebody that can help you.
Well,
in some way.
She's actually the one that gave me the kick in the ass that got me to start writing again. Because for couple of years after I retired, I kept threatening to write a book.
Yeah.
She ends up going in on one of those Shop NBCs or whatever, one of those websites.
Yeah.
She buys me a laptop, and when it comes, she throws it at me and
Start
says,
writing
"Write the
fucking-
book."
Yeah, that's
And
great.
Shot to Pieces was born a year later.
That's awesome, man. Thank you for coming in, man.
Thank you for
Mike,
having
love
me.
to
I
have you
really
back again.
appreciate
Well,
it,
Mike,
guys.
it's probably been like 25, 30 years since I've seen you. Let's not make it be another 30 years.
Okay, yeah,
Because
yeah, we'll get to-
I'll be in my 90s if I do that, you know?
And God willing, we'll all be on our
That's
90s.
right. Collecting that
I
pension
went
forever.
3 digits.
All right, there you have it, man. On behalf of Police Off the Cuff, we are end the tour here.
End the tour. Bill Cannon, Mark DeMeo.
And Michael O'Keefe. And wait, Andrew Steiner.
Our editor.
Behind the Wheels of Steel,
Every day
Andrew
is getting
Steiner.
More and more conservative. He came in here as a leftist. He's almost a conservative by now.